Alright guys, let's pick up where we left off on chapter 2 earlier this week. You should have your writer's notebook out, your ELA notebook out, because you are going to be doing some active work while we read today. I've got some toddler moments, but my first sequence recall is kindergarten, no matter how hard I've tried to forget the experience. My parents said the place was going to be all kinds of fun, but it wasn't. The school was only blocks from our house, and it was here that I first committed the crime of questioning the system. The instructor, Mrs. King, had just plowed her way through a popular picture book. It featured the hallmarks of most preschool literature, repetition and some kind of annoying rhyme and bold-faced scientific lies. And I remember Mrs. King asking the class, "How does this book make you feel?" And the appropriate answer, as far as she was concerned, was tired, because the overly cheery instructor forced us to lie down on sticky rubber mats for 20 minutes after the lunchtime picture book, quote unquote. Half of the class usually fell deeply asleep, and I remember distinctly a boy named Miles twice peeing his pants, and, with the exception of a kid named Garrison, who I'm certain had some sort of restless leg syndrome, everyone in the back of the room seemed to actually enjoy the horizontal book. What were these kids thinking? The first week, while my classmates doze off, I obsessively worried about the hygiene of the linoleum floor. I can hear Mrs. King's spine straight and shrill voice booming, "How does this book make you feel?" And then she made a few exaggerated yawns. And I recall looking around at my fellow inmates, thinking, would anyone just shout the word tired? I had not uttered a single syllable in my 5 sessions as a student, and I had no intention of doing so. But after days of hearing more lies from an adult than I'd ever been exposed to in my whole lifetime, everything from how fairies cleaned up the classroom at night to the insane explanation for earthquakes preparedness kits, I was at some kind of breaking point. So when the teacher specifically said, "Willow, how does this book make you feel?" I had to tell her the truth. It makes me feel really bad. The moon can't hear someone say goodnight. It is 235,000 miles away, and bunnies don't live in houses, and also, I don't think that artwork is very interesting. Does anyone know what book she's describing here? I think it's Goodnight Moon, and I agree with her about the artwork. I bit my lower lip, and I experienced the metallic taste of blood. That means she bit her lip so hard she bled. But really, hearing you read the book makes me feel bad, mostly because I know it means you're going to make us lie down on the floor, and the germs that are there could make us sick. There's a thing called salmonella, and it's very dangerous, especially to kids. That afternoon, I learned the word weirdo, because that's what I was called by the other kids. And when my mom came to pick me up, she found me crying behind the dumpster in the play yard. I was taken to see an education consultant that autumn, and the woman did an evaluation. She sent my parents a letter. I read it. It said I was, quote unquote, highly gifted. Are people lowly gifted or medium gifted or just gifted? Is it possible that all labels are curses unless they are on cleaning products? Because in my opinion, it's not really a great idea to see people as one thing. Every person has lots of ingredients to make them into what is always a one-of-a-kind creation. This chick so speaks my language. We are all imperfect genetic stews. According to the consultant, Mrs. Grace V. Meerman, the challenge for the persons of someone highly gifted was to find ways to keep the child engaged and stimulated, but I think she was wrong. Almost everything interests me. I can be engaged by the arc of water in a sprinkler system. I can look through a microscope for a shockingly long period of time. The challenge for my parents was going to be to find a friend who could put up with such a person. And all of this leads to our garden. Mom and Dad said that they were looking into enriching my life, but I think one thing was obvious from the beginning. Plants can't talk back. Chapter 3. As a family, we threw ourselves into growing things. I have photos from early trips to buy seeds, to pick out young plants, and I looked insanely excited. Early on, I adopted my gardening outfit, and it did not change over the years. You could say it was my uniform, and I almost always wore a khaki shirt and a red hat for sun protection. Red is my favorite color because it is very important to the plant world. I had tan pants with built-in knee pads, and I had lace-up leather work boots. This outfit was designed for practical reasons. My unruly curly hair was pulled back and secured into some sort of clip, and I had a magnifying glass like the elderly wear for close-up inspection. In my garden, in this uniform, I determined, through chemical analysis at the age of 7, that the brown flecks that appeared on the backyard furniture were bee pops. I was astonished that more people had not figured this out before. In an ideal world, I would have spent 24 hours a day conducting investigations, but rest is critically important for the development of young people. I calculated my exact biorhythms, and I needed 7 hours and 47 minutes of rest every night. Not just because I was obsessed with the number 7, which was the case, but because that's how my circadian rhythms were set. It's chemical, isn't everything? I was told that I lived too much inside my own head, and maybe because of this I haven't done that well in school, and I've never had many friends, but my garden gave me a window into the other aspects of companionship. When I was 8 years old, a flock of wild green-rumped parrots moved into the fishtail palm tree by the back wooden fence. A pair built a nest, and I was able to witness the arrival of parrot babies. Each of those little birds had their own distinctive chirp. I was pretty sure that only the mom, green-rumped parrot, and I knew this. When the littlest parrot was pushed from the nest, I rescued the tiny creature and named him Fallen. With careful hand feeding that in the beginning went around the clock, I was able to parent. When Fallen was strong enough to fly, I reintroduced him back to his flock, and it was incredibly rewarding, but it was also heartbreaking. It had been my experience that rewarding and heartbreaking often go hand in hand. In grade school at Rose Elementary, I had one true companion, and her name was Margaret Z. Buckle. She made up the Z because she didn't have a middle name, and she had strong feelings about being seen as an individual. But Margaret, don't ever call her Peggy, moved away the summer after 5th grade. Her mother is a petroleum engineer, and she got transferred to Canada. Despite the distance, I thought Margaret and I would stay really close, and at the beginning it was like that, but I guess people are a lot more open in Canada because in Bakersfield it was just Margaret and me against the world. Up there she had all kinds of friends, and now on rare times when we correspond, she brings up things like a new sweater she got or a band she likes. She doesn't want to talk about crinteropathy, which is the pollination of plants by bats. She moved on. Who can blame her? With Margaret in Canada, I was hoping that the Sequoia Middle School would open up new adventures for friendship, but it hadn't worked out that way. I'm small for my age, and I had a lot of anticipation about becoming a Sequoia giant, but just the fact that the place had a tree as its mascot seemed so promising. The school was on the other side of town, and it was supposed to give me a fresh start since the kids from my elementary all went to Emerson. My parents got special permission from the district to move me there, and my mom and dad believed that I'd never found a teacher who truly understood me. And I think it was more accurate to say that I never understood any of my teachers, and there's a difference. All right, we are going to end right there today, and I want you to just spend some time predicting how is this change going to affect Willow. What do you think happened when she started her new school? And just spend some time writing about that. You're learning more about Willow as a character. What are some predictions that you have for her? What are some questions or frustrations that you have about her? Spend some time writing about this, please, in your writer's notebook. And then your assignment today is going to be to take a picture of that, of you in your writer's notebook, and turn it in for credit today. Have fun writing.